Welcome to everyone around the world, our amazing community contributors that are global. Welcome to this Powerful Devs Ask the Expert. My name is David Warner. I'm a community program manager for Microsoft. And with me today is
Hugo Bernier. I'm also a principal program manager at Microsoft. And today we have a very special guest. He's a principal program manager in the developer experience for the Power Platform. He's someone that I admire and I've followed for a long time. In fact, he still has a restraining order against me. It's Kartik Kanakasabesan.
Oh,
Kartik, what's up?
hey guys, how's it going? And Hugo, the restraining order is still there.
Kartik. Awesome. Welcome. Thanks for taking some time to spend with us today. Now, we're here today because on February 15th, Powerful Devs occurred, and this was really about pro dev integration with the Power Platform, right? So topics like ALM and PCF controls and connectors were all covered and discussed. So you're going to take that a little further for us today, right? But why don't you first start out by introducing yourself to our fantastic community?
Absolutely, absolutely. So, hey world, my name is Kartik Kanakasabesan. I am, as Hugo mentioned, I'm a principal program manager at Microsoft, focusing primarily on developer solutions with Power Platform. Now, why is it what I do? What I do is essentially as we move along this continuum of building application software, pro developers around the world like to go build stuff that matters. And we want to be able to go build the appropriate set of experiences that one needs to have and provide in order to be able to build applications quicker, faster, better, and test out things and actually deliver things that matter quicker, faster, better. That was a very long-winded intro, guys, but that's it.
No, it's awesome.
Yeah. So Powerful Devs really focused on how we can extend and integrate the Power Platform, especially for first code or code first developers. But can you give us an overview of the different ways that code first developers can use their skills and really extend the platform?
Right. Well, there's several ways. All right. One, when you look at what low-code platforms, specifically Power Platform, does, it's one. It's not necessarily. It's democratizing the way people build applications. Okay, so that's one. Now, whether you have a type JavaScript or TypeScript background, doesn't matter. You can still build extensions directly in that context. If you have C# development background, you can still build applications. And as a matter of fact, I'd even go ahead to say the fact that if you have Java development skills, and you're building, let's say, serverless containers, you can actually go ahead and interface that with a Power Platform app in the front end. So we welcome all. We're not, our tent is pretty wide, and various different ways that you can actually go do things. So depending on the outcome that you want to be able to go drive, you are now able to uh, build some of these things. Like one of the examples that I usually talk about in this case is, uh, when you look at, have you? I'm assuming you guys have already seen this big fat head, long tail kind of thing when it comes to projects, right? Visualize
Mhm.
that for a second, right? But one of the reasons
Fathead, I
why,
see that every time I look in the mirror, Kartik.
yeah,
So
I know
I'm,
exactly. The
I'm
three
right
of us
there with
three of
you.
us belong to that
Yeah.
club. Exactly, exactly. But think about it this way, right? In the fact that you have a big set of projects up front at the top that have really good ROI, and then you have a long tail of projects that you really want to go do, but the ROI is not there because it takes some of your best developers away from things that really matter to the business. All right. Now, not to say the fact that the long tail doesn't is not impactful. It is. It's there in the backlog. Now, with things like Power Platform, regardless of the skill level that you have from a coding perspective, you're now able to address some of those things, and the ROI is now well within reach. So I know that's a very long-winded answer about skills and everything else, Hugo, but sometimes just let me know when I'm making you fall asleep.
I think David has some music for you.
There we go.
Well, there we go. Yeah. Sorry. What was that? No.
Yeah,
No.
exactly.
That's perfect. That's perfect. So you talked about some other developers, right? Some other
Mhm,
technologies and stuff. But if someone is really just kind of staying within the Microsoft ecosystem,
mhm,
and they're looking at this and thinking about pro dev and pro development and entry points
mhm,
and all that, is it just for .NET developers, right? Are they thinking, well, if I'm not I didn't do a lot of .NET, right?
mhm,
I started out in JavaScript and CSS, a lot
mhm.
of the front end stuff. Never really kind of got into .NET. So does that mean that someone like myself is going to be excluded from this, or
No, that's the essence of what Power Platform is. It is honest to goodness the only platform that does inclusive development. So the fact that you feel The fact that it's never designed to exclude anyone. That's one. All right.
Awesome.
Now, having said that, your JavaScript development. So, for example, one uh, can still convey into Power Platforms. You can actually build custom controls, things like that. The entire PCF session that we had earlier this week was around that. Was taking controls that are written in TypeScript or JavaScript. It'll transpile. All right. So take TypeScript code and render JavaScript in this case. All right. And you can add those controls into Power Platform. The notion here that we're trying to really push forward is the whole idea of something called as fusion development. All right. Or inclusive development, whatever you want to be able to call it. But the intent is to make sure that you're building components that citizen developers can go ahead and use to build applications on top of. You don't want to be in a situation just because you're doing low code development doesn't mean you always have to start from scratch every single time, right? That's the power of getting code first developers going ahead and building these kind of artifacts directly. So whether you're writing applications in JavaScript, as I mentioned, when you're writing functions and running in serverless containers in Java, Python, whatever the case is, it can be registered as an API and then talk to a front end in Power Platform. So we welcome all, in honest to goodness.
So what if I've invested a lot into Azure services and in Azure infrastructure, and I want to start adopting the Power Platform? Is there a way for me to integrate my existing Azure services into the Power Platform?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, you have the ability to go ahead. If you're running, let's say, Azure SQL directly on Power Platform, one of the great use cases that we have is one of the great things about Azure SQL is that you already have an entity relationship there already. And from that, you can generate an app in that context there. Now, one of the other demos that you might have seen, with Julia Casper when she did the whole Open API, you saw what she did there, right?
Mm-hmm.
She went ahead and took the Open API endpoint, registered that onto the API management gateway, and then from there created a custom connector. Now, one of the cool things that's still in preview right now that we have is also called the ability to generate an app just from an API, so from a connector. All right. So you can actually complete the entire story there in that context too. Is that we want to build experiences that will accelerate the app development effort quicker, so that you're able to round trip and iterate as fast as you can. All right. Similarly, as I mentioned, I already covered Azure Data and API management. You can also look at things like event hubs. All right. So you got all these different events coming in, and from those events, you can create flows that trigger off downstream activities, or for that matter, even transform that information as the case may be, and put them into things like Dataverse or other data stores and things of that nature. So off the top of my head, those are just 3 resources within Azure that you can just go use right away and build that. We're also exploring things like looking at things like Signal R, looking at how we can use PCF controls with Blazor, but these are all still conceptual things that we're currently evaluating. But that's the kind of the direction where we're going, where we're bringing some of these experiences directly into a code first developers environment, so that it is easier for them to on ramp onto a low code platform like Power Platform in this context.
Yeah, that's very cool. I almost thought you said PCF controls with lasers, and I got really excited for a second there, thinking we get sharks involved and pew pew. But awesome. So just as a reminder for everybody watching, there's an opportunity for you putting comments in the chat. So don't hesitate, don't be shy. We'll get those questions answered for you. So load us up. But until then, Kartik, you did a session at Powerful Devs on ALM. So why don't you explain exactly what ALM is? It's not like a brother to ALF or anything like that, right? It actually has a meeting here in the Power Platform, and talk about the strategy for Power Platform solutions.
Absolutely. So ALM stands for Application Lifecycle Management, although that ALF reference is pretty good. I like that. And anyone who doesn't know what ALF is, it stands for Alien Life Form. All right. But from an ALM standpoint, think of what an application. Every element that we have has its inception, its growth, and for lack of a better term, retirement. All right. And or for that matter, between retirement, there's growth, there's plateau, and then there's retirement. Okay. That's also the similar. That's what an application lifecycle is, for all intents and purposes, right? We come up with a really cool idea to go solve a problem. We build an application to go address it, and then it catches on like wildfire. All right. And then finally it kind of reaches to its limits, and then we have to work on retiring it, so to speak. So that's essentially the essence of what application lifecycle management is. Now, let me be also very, very clear. When you're building applications in Power Platform, you are building an application, right? And hence it is subjected to all the lifecycle management constraints that one has with any kind of application in that context. The only difference is that you're building apps a heck of a lot quicker. Now, when it comes to application, when it comes to application lifecycle management has covers a myriad of things. All right. It's not just, I mean, let me be honest. The cool kid in application lifecycle management is the deployment, because deployment deploys the artifact of the app into prod, where within now that application becomes all touch and feely, you can experience it and so on and so forth. But under the covers, there are other elements of application lifecycle management. The notion of being able to test applications, the notion of making sure that the environments that you're deploying your application in as it goes to production is repeatable and consistent. All right. So that when you go ahead and deploy things in production, you're not going ahead and, as what I call, doing development in production. That's the reason. And the other element is, for organizations, the reason why they invest a lot of time in ALM is because they want to mitigate risk. Right? That's a big element of what ALM does, is actually help you, give you kind of a framework on how to mitigate risks when it comes to developing applications and deploying those applications. All right. I know, again, as I warned you, I have a tendency to go ahead and give very long-winded answers on topics. So, sorry, Dave, you asked for it.
Don't worry, Kartik. We'll cue the Oscar music for you. This is Kartik's 5th question in the nominations, and proceed.
Yeah, okay.
Proceed.
All right.
So when I talk to customers about how to get started with application lifecycle management, one of the things I'll talk to them about is build your environment strategy, have a good environment strategy. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of an environment strategy and maybe some tips on how to establish that?
Oh, absolutely. So one of the things, and you might have noticed that we just announced early in January, announced this whole update to the developer plan as well. And again, I would encourage everyone in the community to go try it out. But what we really, and I'll get to what precipitated that change, if you will. But by and large, the direction where we're heading towards, and I want to paint this picture where we're going towards, where you would have environments that are long-lived environments, right? These are things like your production environments, as the case may be. You may then have something called a sandbox, which is kind of like the sandbox, which is kind of like your QA, which is analogous to what your production environment is, but it's for your testing work as is. Now, there's also a school of thought where these sandbox testing environments are also ephemeral. Now, what does that mean? Well, that means that you only you spawn these environments up just to test and then tear them down. All right. So there's a school of thought that's there. There's also a school of thought that says, no, we have to have, UAT or QA in a dedicated long-lived type environment. That's all fun and games, but sometimes, you have dependencies. This is like any other software development effort, right? Sometimes you have dangling DLLs sitting on that stuff, and that completely breaks your entire QA test script, right? So there's that element there. Now, the other piece is, there's some companies that have, let's say, or organizations rather, that have a dedicated long-lived dev environment as well, where multiple developers kind of participate and partake in developing applications. There are also companies that decide, no, we want to have each developer gets their own environment where they can go ahead and play. All right. And then from that point on, do whatever they need to go do, and then persist that entire thing directly onto a source code repository. Now, why is that last bit important? Well, it's important because you want to be able to go ahead and, if the developer environment blows away, you can now rehydrate from your source code environment as well. All right. So these are all various different facets that one has to consider when it comes to looking at an environment strategy, if you will, from a low-code application development perspective.
And I think the other thing to consider too, when we're starting to think about environment strategy, is not all applications are governed the same way, right? Because you might have some mission critical solutions that are more IT owned, but they may be built using the Power Platform. There might be some applications that are maybe built by the business, but operated by IT. And then there might be some maybe departmental or team applications that are not necessarily mission critical and that are really built and operated by the makers in the organization. And each one of those would have probably a different strategy.
Exactly. As a matter of fact, so implicitly, when we were talking about all the different sessions in Powerful Devs, right? Yes, it was geared more towards code first developers, granted, but just like any other technology, there's this kind of an adoption curve or adoption ramp, if you will. All right. And one of the things that Casey had shared was the ability to do things like inbuilt pipelines. Now, why is that? The reason being is the fact that we realize when you have citizen developers that come in and build applications, and by the way, when citizen developers build application, this is not a new paradigm. All right. You look at all the different examples across the industry, any piece of software, Linux for that matter, it was built with a small little tool that was needed. And then other people started adding different tools, and we're like, someone stood back and said, wait a minute, let's channel this community energy. All right. The same principles apply when we look at low code applications as well. So someone decided that they wanted to go ahead and build an application, or in this case, a personal productivity application, all right, to solve a particular problem for them. It then started graduating and said, hey, wait a minute, I have this little cool app. Try it out. That's where you have things like sharing and so on and so forth. And that kind of goes along that particular continuum and saying, okay, now, once, so let me put it this way, and I'm not trying to, let me be very clear. I'm not trying to minimize a citizen developer here, but if someone from finance, let's say, who knows the insides and outs of debits, credits, and ledgers and all this other stuff, when you start throwing them into the deep end with things like Azure DevOps and GitHub, they're like, eek! Right?
What's GitHub?
Right?
What's a PR?
Exactly. Exactly. So the intent on things like being able to go build that inbuilt ALM pipeline, if you will, was the fact that we wanted to go ahead and show these folks, hey, listen, by the way, and finance folks understand risk management, by the way, that's common parlance. All right. So this is how you now go ahead and manage risk in the way you want to go deploy it. So now you have that ability to kind of smoothen the on-ramp from your inbuilt and then gradually make your way into Azure DevOps as things become more complicated. And then actions usually come in when you have IT getting involved, right? Because the application now has become so big that now IT has to manage it, because you're now going ahead and writing a lot of these applications that are using data sources that need to be governed, if you will.
That's very, very cool, Kartik. Thank you. So news break, right? We got a data stream coming in from the community. We got some questions. Awesome. So Daniel, a very fantastic community contributor, has a question, and he said, is there a recommended approach for deploying Power BI data flows and datasets? And to go on, so deploy a workspace directly or package up as solutions seems not as straightforward as, say, Canvas apps.
Oh, okay. Well, I've got great news for Daniel. One, the Power BI team's currently got a preview going where you can now add Power BI assets into solutions directly into, and then be able to go do ALM that way. And what it does is, once you associate a Power BI asset, a report asset directly into a solution, it automatically maps that to the workspace. All right. And then from that point on, when you ALM or when you deploy to various different environments, all you have to go do is tweak the environment variable inside that solution to map it to the appropriate data source. Because, like, for example, you may want to go ahead and, when your dev environment, talk to the dev data set. And then when you go into prod, you want to talk to the prod data set. So we actually have the preview capabilities actually documented on Microsoft Learn. And I'll be more than happy to go ahead and point David to that location as part of a follow-up later on.
Awesome.
That was a perfect answer to an impromptu question. Did you guys rehearse this? Is Daniel in on this?
I don't know. I can assure you, I did not pay him.
Yeah, they did. They did not. They did not. Yes.
All right. So you talked about solutions, and I'd love to talk about what role do solutions play in application lifecycle management, and should everything be built in the Power Platform to be in a solution?
That is actually accurate. So solutions are the most atomic unit. Now, it's an organizing unit, to be fair, that allow customers to go do ALM with Power Platform. So everything, if you want to manage it, it's better to be kept inside a solution. All right. It does a couple of things. It gives it a good organization construct, all right, than just having a simple dangling app. Along with that, all the different resources that are associated with that. You can have multiple apps also inside a solution, by the way. And then if you look at the kind of hierarchy of artifacts, if you will, all right, you have your various different apps, flows that are individual pieces across the board, all right? And then you associate all those things in a solution. You can then have multiple solutions that can be packaged together as an application, All right, so that's now this new term, package, all right, which has multiple solutions in it that can then be deployed. So we actually have a lot of folks like our broader ISV community. We have AppSource as a location where they use a lot of these capabilities. All right, these are also developers, by the way. They're betting their entire business on top of a Microsoft platform. All right, and so they use these constructs as well to be able to go distribute applications not only within their organization but across organizations where customers are actually buying a lot of these capabilities as such. So, you know, solutions are essence that actually enable the magic to happen, and especially allow you to package it in a way that you can distribute this across multiple different environments. So that's the most atomic construct that you could actually go have.
Well, and I think one of the things that's important when we're talking about application lifecycle management, right? The ability to go to an environment and to test your solution. Probably the last thing you want to do once you've tested your solution is to put it in production and then go change the solution. Let's say to change the email address you want to send an email to or things like that. And this is where you can use things like environment variables and things like that.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
David.
Yeah, so I mean, one of the exciting things about all this technology, and we've really kind of been ushered forth to embrace a worldwide global community, especially with COVID the last couple of years, right? We're all being able to connect virtually. It's created this sense of family within the community. And what's fantastic is with this technology, things like co-authoring now and stuff like that, you don't have to be in the same room. You don't even have to be in the same company. The community is strong and vibrant, and you're able to collaborate with someone who's on the other side of the world as if they were sitting right next to you. So we know that the community is such an important piece to the success of our technology, to the success of our software. I know you were a speaker at the Microsoft Power Platform Conference last year, and will be coming up here in October in Vegas. And so you've been collaborating with the community. Give us a little bit of how you see and feel about the power of the community.
The community, to me, it's a source of oxygen as far as I'm concerned. All right, they are the reason. I mean, and let me put it this way: these are folks that are investing their future with us. This is the awesome responsibility that I have to serve this community, and that and to be completely candid, it's what energizes me. It's these folks. There we go. Aw. but that's I'm not pandering to the community in general. But like, to be completely candid, it is amazing. It is amazing the kind of community that we have. And to be honest, when I was at the conference last year, it was the energy was so palpable. If anyone had any doubt about the simplest of impacts that one makes, you just go and participate in one of these conferences, or just even engage with the community on the various different forums that we have. All right, you can see how vested they are in not only in their success but also in our success. The shared responsibility for that, achieving that success, it is just absolutely amazing.
Yeah, and I have to say, after being at the conference, I was talking to some people from the product groups, and they were saying, it was a great reminder that people are building their business and their livelihood on our products.
Yeah.
And that having that seeing people in person and having that reminder was just amazing and invigorating for all of us, I think.
Absolutely, yeah. And when you think about, the dawn of Power Platform, it's really just getting bigger and brighter from here, right? And so I think historically, technologies like SharePoint, you inherited it because the company bought it, and you talk to people and say, well, how did you get started as a SharePoint developer? They say, well, somebody came to my cubicle one day and said, hey, we got this thing called SharePoint. Guess what? You own it. Some of that is happening within the Power Platform. Hey, we've bought licenses and we need to start using them. Can you look into it? So people are inheriting it, but sometimes they're a team of one. So not only do you think about the phrase that we're all using right now, doing more with less, that is a perfect example of the Power Platform, although it's also synonymous with community. So if you think about doing more with less, you may be on a team that is small and you don't have a lot of like-minded, maybe passionate individuals that you're working with. Use the community. Go to aka.ms/join the community. Learn more about those that are out there. We've got community calls. We've got sharing is caring sessions to learn how to get involved in the community. We talked about GitHub, right? And how it can be a little bit like words like clone and fork and raw and blame, and we're like, I'm not hungry and I don't want to tell anybody that they're wrong. But those are misunderstandings, right? And so getting to know and working together you have seen that obviously by
Mhm.
way of the conference and being able to see the energy, as you said. How
Mhm.
inspiring is that to you, though, to be able to continue to do more and push further for that community?
Well, look at it this way. If since time immemorial, all right, I'm going to probably date myself, but if you look at any piece of great software, was never built by one individual. It's always been a community of people, whether it be within an organization as a team, all right, or the broader organization. All right, we have several examples of that. All right, I've yet to see any example of the way applications being built in particular that have only been built by one person and said, oh, you nailed it. And I'll be happily, looking forward to the day that I'm proven wrong. But community is the bare essence. And if you look at a lot of the different models, I mean, if you look at the things like success at GitHub, for example, as you mentioned that, the essence of success at GitHub was the fact that it allowed people to collaborate from vast difference in geography and everything else to a common purpose. And it was code. All right. Code spoke to them. And they realized that was something they wanted to go do. The same set of paradigms also apply to Power Platform, right? You're now obviously it is low code. Don't get me wrong, but the pool of developers has now widened. And by the way, I just want to let you know this is within Microsoft's DNA, right? When you look at the advent of things like graphical user interfaces and everything else, what did that do? It democratized computing, all right. And that's the trajectory that we're currently on. Is that we're on the trajectory of actually democratizing application development in this case. All right. And we've had several starts at this stuff, and we've done this. VB was the start. I'm dating myself here when I say that. But then now you also have Power Platform that kind of takes that next step in getting app development going faster. Now, the other thing I do want to know, since we were talking about all this coding, it's kind of exciting to me. We have an event going on right now. It's called LowCode February. All right. It's straightforward. The URL, it's aka.ms/lowcode-February. All right. It is going on till February, but you can still partake after February is done. The site's still going to remain there. But every day we have different hackathons happening, content coming up, blogs, and all that stuff. So I would implore the community to go ahead and take a look, provide samples, participate in some of the skills challenges, and give us feedback. We're not going to get everything right, but the fact that we have the power of the community, they can always steer the ship in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. Better together, right? And we need to do more together and support and be collaborative. And I love that. Just absolutely love that. By the way, Kartik, I'm glad to know that the voices I was hearing from the code, it wasn't just me. Your code is speaking to you too. So
Exactly.
really appreciate that. Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you everyone for attending today. We are super glad that you came. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for taking the time to watch. Don't hesitate to reach out, get involved in the community, reach out to Kartik, Hugo, myself. We'd love to collaborate. Thank you all. Have a wonderful day.